Hello, my grandbabies. Don here, your pop culture grandpapa.
Get your money up, not your funny up.
In past videos on this channel, I've talked about how social media is making us angrier and triggering us into oblivion over trivialities. But what I've failed to mention is us getting so triggered because of what we see on social media, it's resulting in the byproduct of us yearning to be pandered to offset our negative emotions, almost like a safety mechanism to protect our minds and energy, instead of just logging off. But then again, each individual social media feed is tailored by an algorithm with sole purpose of keeping us engaged on these apps for as long as possible. I'm seeing this overwhelming desire to be pandered to in society being directed at pop stars, whether to seem more relatable or the public wanting pop stars to reflect their sentiments when it relates to politics or social issues. And the algorithm also encourages this behavior of wanting to be pandered to because it shows us what we want to see or what it thinks we want to see. And I know the algorithm doesn't, possess consciousness, so it can't think, but you know what I mean. Anyway, when you do come across a different rhetoric that doesn't align with your views, it might lead us to lashing out in the name of, oh no, what happened to my beautiful, non-challenging feed? Plus, if you see something you don't like, you can report it to see it less. One of these 7 wonders of the algorithm, which aids in our need to be pandered to, not only on social media, but also in society. Back in the day, the average social media user's goals were to be or emulate celebrities. We were obsessed with what they wore, their net worth, whatever fucked up concoction they ate. But that was in a better time, a time of adventurous whimsicalness, to now in a time of multiple uncertainties, especially economically, while the gap between the haves and have-nots grow even wider. And we are seeing the average online users wanting celebrities to be like them. And I find this shift in paradigms fascinating. And I, being who I am, which is your pop culture boy, aka your pop culture grandpapa, a concierge, coordinator, professor, and head of state, I want to explore this topic of panderism within pop culture. This video is about the weird thirst for panderism in society. Also in this video, I want to give my take on why we like being pandered to in the first place, and how we are losing the plot in this strife of literally forcing pop stars to pander to us. I am Don, your pop culture boy, and let's get into it.
Catastrophic.
Why are we obsessed with being pandered to? Now, there are many factors at play in regards to the need to be pandered to, and I believe society contributes to the panderism epidemic that we are now seeing in pop culture. But first, let's dive into the definition. According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, to pander is to say, do, or provide what someone, such as an audience, wants or demands, even though it's not good, proper, reasonable, etc. Now, in spite of this negative connotation attached to pandering, you can still see why we are addicted to it. Because a lot of us just don't like feeling uncomfortable, or a lot of us don't like stepping out of our comfort zones. And when we are in a state of comfort, we are awarded with dopamine rushes. That serves as an ego boost. So accepting panderism is like a psychological prison that we voluntarily check ourselves into to feel good despite the negative ramifications down the line. In society, we see this phenomenon plays out in politics. Politicians say what their audience want to hear instead of what they need to hear, persuading and deceiving their audience for votes. Meanwhile, the real issues never get addressed. We also see extreme pandering in anime in the form of fan service. Now, if you don't watch anime and have no idea what I'm talking about, anime is basically a style of animation done by the Japanese. And fan service is when the animators intentionally insert explicit scenes or suggestive actions in their material to cater to a large portion of their audience. That includes, but not limited to, pervy men that cannot get a girlfriend. Examples of fan service in anime are jiggle effects on certain body parts, along with scantily clothed characters, which can be found in animes such as Prison School and High School of the Dead. Don't ask me how I know these things. And some of these characters that they are using in fan service are fucking children. FBI, open up! I also think customer service in various industries also aid in the amplification of panderism. Just a little lore on your pop culture boy. I used to work in customer service, and for anyone that has or is currently working in customer service, you are trained to make the customer feel good at all times. The customer is always right. Always make them leave with a smile. Now, I used to work for this mega corporation, and I always got the feeling that customers preferred to be lied to, as a lot of them would act negatively negatively to the truth. So as a rep, for the most part, our job was to feed the customer's ego instead of challenging their perspectives, as that can lead to chasing the customers away. Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime set, which is a complex commentary on the current state of American culture, race, and politics, is a perfect example of how the masses want to be pandered to instead of being challenged with the truth. Seeing many thought the performance was boring or its narrative was agonizing, as they wanted to just chill, not think, as if watching the game doesn't require thinking as well. In regards to pandering in music, in 2019, Jack Harris from the American River Current had an interesting stance on pandering in relation to artists' genre hopping, which also correlates to everyone in my opinion. In the piece, Jack wrote, "The musician's identity used to be first and foremost presented through their music. The internet, the most accessible marketing tool one could ask for, has changed that. As a result, the most famous musicians in the country aren't just famous for their music, their personalities, their characters. The musical output of an artist is still a key element of their success, but consistency is no longer necessary. Today, after a musician has achieved fame, the music has a tendency to take a back seat to their personality and antics. Some of the top artists in the country are changing their sounds entirely or making musical choices different than anybody else in the industry. Justin Timberlake, Miley Cyrus, Maroon 5, Taylor Swift, and Post Malone all have sounds quite different from what first made them famous, but are mostly as popular as they ever were. This isn't to say that musicians shouldn't be allowed to grow or evolve across their careers, but in the worst cases, it feels like pandering or an attempt to sustain fame." Now, while I understand the writer's sentiments of genre hopping and how that can seem like pandering to the masses in order to keep up or stay relevant, Jack's stance made me consider the regular working class. We are all trying to climb the corporate ladder, switch to different lines of work when the former can no longer maintain our expenses, and update or learn new skills to stay relevant in the job market. All being considered, if that's pandering, then aren't we all pandering? Now, let's talk about brands for a bit.
Let's ride. Let's ride.
Once upon a time, brands had a specific target audience. In the 90s and 2000s, clothing/fashion brands wasn't shy about letting us know they cater to skinny bodies only, shunning anything plus size. Most mainstream and high-end fashion brands, such as Calvin Klein, Ralph Lauren, and Tommy Hilfiger, focused on straight sizes, typically 0 to 12, and did not produce clothing in plus size ranges, 14 and up. This was driven by a combination of industry standards, cost concerns, and a cultural bias towards thinness, exemplified by the heroin chic aesthetic, popularized by models like Kate Moss. Fast forward to present times, many brands, not only in relation to fashion, are now making an effort to campaign that they are now inclusive and diverse, when that was never their goal in the past. Brands can change, but in my experience on this topic related to specifically fashion brands, they don't care about diversity and are just pandering because of heavy scrutiny on social media. Case in point, Victoria's Secret's fashion show, which has historically featured only thin models on the runway, resulting in backlash from the public for years. In 2018, Harper's Bazaar published a piece about the lack of plus-size representation in the show, where Ed Rozek, former chief marketing officer at the brand, gave his reason why the brand is justified for not including women larger than a size 8 in the shows. If we're asking if we're considering putting a transgender model in the show or looked at putting a plus-size model in the show, we have, Ed Rozek told US Vogue. We invented the plus-size model show in what was our sister division, Lane Bryant. Lane Bryant still sells plus-size lingerie, but it sells a specific range, just like every specialty retailer in the world sells a range of clothing. As we do, we market to who we sell to, and we don't market to the world. We attempted to do a television special for plus sizes in 2000. No one had any interest in it. Still don't. The article continues. Interest in Rihanna's Savage Fenty X fashion show, which featured women of different sizes, shapes, and ethnicities, would suggest otherwise. The show also included a heavily pregnant Sleek Woods, who gave birth the next day. However, Rozek thinks if Victoria's Secret followed a similar inclusive format, that it would be accused of pandering. Now, after Ed made these comments, the Victoria's Secret's brand received even more criticisms, overshadowing the 2018 Victoria's Secret fashion show broadcast, resulting in one of the lowest viewerships. In 2019, Ed resigned from his role in the company due to the backlash over his comments and due to the fact that many women found the brand regressive and not a true representation of women today, outdated. By the mid-10s, other brands were already making significant shifts in the underwear and athleisure market, representing a more realistic take on women's body. Ed also resigned after they recruited their first transgender model to walk the runway at the Victoria's Secret fashion show in 2019, which got cancelled, triggering a hiatus. When the show returned in 2024, the brand had already pivoted to a more quote-unquote inclusive stance during the show's hiatus. That year, the runway featured 2 trans and 2 plus-size models, but some saw this shift into diversity as limited and them pandering. And they were pandering, as inclusion was never their message. Their profits were down and their viewership was down. Also, the pandering was noted as half-assed, like they just wanted to throw the critics a bone. This situation definitely encapsulates the thirst we have to be pandered to, but where the problem lies is who we are forcing to pander, because these brands don't care. We are at a point now where everyone is scared of getting canceled, so we are seeing most brands and celebrities trying their best to convince everyone that they are inclusive and diverse. Rihanna, who is multifaceted, singer, actress, businesswoman.
Big business.
And in my opinion, because she has such a wide audience from different backgrounds, in order for her to stay relevant, she kind of has to pander, as she has multiple eggs in multiple baskets. So before she gets called out for not being inclusive in her endeavors outside music, I'm talking about her brands such as Fenty Beauty and her lingerie line Savage X, she made sure to be inclusive from the launch of those brands. I don't think she's pandering when it comes to her makeup brand, but I don't wear makeup, so maybe I have a skewed take there. But with her lingerie underwear brand Savage X, also I don't wear lingerie, I find the inclusiveness of that brand to be pandering, because she is at this point expected to be inclusive since, the launch of her makeup line, which covers a wide range of skin tones. So to me, Savage X seems like a chore and a cash grab because of so many bad reviews regarding the quality of the garment and the shady membership program that was impossible to cancel after it was added to one's cart automatically during checkout. I don't think anyone is this inclusive when it comes to a product. Maybe in some cases, but most cases I find it hard to believe, especially in this time where it's on trend to be inclusive, because the public want to see themselves in things that doesn't care for them for some reason.
When it comes to being inclusive, you want everyone to be a part of that. So I always want to have my women of color. I want to have an array of women in the minority space and of our race and our people. I want to have representation in aspects that are outside of that, where women aren't usually projected as sexy, but they are. And he designed some boxer briefs that both men and women and non-binary people of all gender appropriations and the pronouns, everyone is included. I didn't want this to be boxers are for men.
You saw how passionate she was speaking about women. She came off genuine and she knew what she was talking about. But when she remembered the public need that pandering and she started talking about different genders and everybody, she got a little lost and uncomfortable. All I'm saying is I'm a bit wary of people who claim to be inclusive or those who try to satisfy everyone, because it's impossible. You can't please everyone. And if you are going to try, I recommend not talking about it, because your actions speak louder than words. Nonetheless, it's because of the current thirst to be pandered to made her go into PR mode prematurely. Another instance was recently when Tate McRae announced she'll collaborate with country artist Morgan Wallen on his song What I Want, which currently is the #1 song in the US. At the time of me recording this video, many Tate McRae fans were mad that she did a song with Morgan. According to USA.com, fans flooded McRae's Instagram post from April 16, slamming the revolving door hitmaker for her upcoming Wallen collab.
I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you?
One commenter said, while another added, "Girl, we love you. Please cancel that collab with Wallen, please." I remember being confused after seeing the backlash she was getting because I'm not invested in Morgan's career like that, heard some of his songs, and I honestly like what I heard. So I did some digging. And apart from his run-in with the law a few times, in 2021 he was caught in 4K using the N-word, for which he did apologize. But honestly, I don't think Tate's fans give a fuck about him saying the N-word. I think it's the fact that many believe he's a Republican. Anyways, let's not lose track. The fact that her fans were so upset about the collab, wanting her to cancel it, proves that they wanted her to pander to them. I'm sure Tate is well informed on Morgan, including her team. They did that collab because they wanted a #1, and they got it. I feel like throughout history, public figures have always shown us who they are. Example, shared a controversial take or belief, sparking backlash, which only furthers the push for more panderism. Because when you pander, it's more likely to get what you want. Gwen Stefani, who has played many characters, she was a South Asian, Japanese, Native American, and the list goes on. In spite of her culture appropriation, people loved Gwen Stefani back in the day, as many were ignorant to the tactic and saw her as a cool girl, and not problematic at all, in comparison to today, where the singer is seen as the problematic final boss. During the first leg of her career as the lead vocalist of rock band No Doubt, the group was a breath of fresh air in the mid-90s, a time of grunge and punk music. Gwen being the face of No Doubt automatically propelled her as the one to take note of. Additionally, she stood out with her brash yet girly punk aesthetic. And with tracks like Just a Girl, the track that gave them their big break, and becoming a feminist anthem in the 90s and still is today, Gwen Stefani has never regarded herself as a feminist, nor had feminism in mind when she wrote the track. When I wrote the song, I was just so naive. I hadn't even written that many songs. I didn't even know who I was. She admitted on The View in 2019. And I just kind of wrote that song because I felt like I was getting in touch with that feeling of when you're born. If you're female, you don't think about it. You're just human. And then through life, you sort of start to realize you get this kind of power through your sexuality, but then you're kind of vulnerable at the same time because all of a sudden you're a victim. So you have all these awareness as you're getting older, and I just wanted to write a song about that. In 1995, at a Roe v. Wade anniversary show, Gwen Stefani said the following when she took the stage. "If I got pregnant right now, I wouldn't get an abortion. But isn't it cool that nobody can tell me what I can and can't do?" Which made the organizers not so happy. If you don't know, Roe v. Wade is about the right for women to have abortions prior to the point of fetal viability. Roe v. Wade came in effect in the 70s by the US Supreme Court, which unfortunately got overturned in 2022, now leaving the rights to abortion up to individual states. All in all, Gwen's remarks didn't align with the core concern of the movement. That being said, I don't see anything wrong with her remarks as she is pro-choice. And isn't the right to abortion also pro-choice? But I also see why they were upset with her as they are pro-abortion. And maybe they thought her statement was countering the agenda. That same year, she told Billboard she wasn't a feminist and that she was more of a girly girl. "I'm really not the type of person that's a big feminist," she told Billboard in 1995. "I'm a more old-fashioned kind of girl, a real girly girl." But the following year, Spin magazine called Gwen a riot girl, still projecting a role onto her she clearly doesn't want. So Gwen has always rejected being a political figure, but that hasn't stopped people from trying, including producer Pharrell Williams, who thought Gwen should have leaned into feminism or took a feminist stance after their collaboration on Spark the Fire released in 2014. Although the song does share sentiments of female empowerment and equality, topics that align with the movement, Gwen doesn't see it that way. In an interview with Pride Source, Gwen explained her and Pharrell's different interpretations of the song demonstrated their relationship dynamic. "I say to him, 'You are so talented and incredible. How do you come up with this stuff? It's blowing my mind.' And he'll say to me, 'It's you. I wouldn't have come up with this unless I got the energy you gave me that night,'" she said. "And I didn't do anything. It's so weird. His interpretation of me is he thinks that I need to be the torch for feminism, but the song was so perfect for my story, for what I was feeling in my own personal life, that I didn't even get it as a feminist anthem. I thought it was just about me. I was just feeling me. People are still outraged with Gwen Stefani today for her more conservative image and conservative alignments. And it's really this need to be pandered to why people are so mad. They have an image of her simply because they like her music. Because if this was a regular white lady doing these things minus the culture appropriation, no one would care because she's really not bothering anyone. And I get it, she made some of the, biggest songs of the 2000s, some of the most memorable, Holla Back Girl, or Cool, which is one of my favorite songs of all time. But like she said, she's just a girl. She's been telling us, for years now, and we just don't listen. Instead, we try to push a narrative onto her when in fact we should just leave her alone because for the most part, she's not bothering anyone and we shouldn't be shocked. I want to now talk about Sailorr, which might muddy the waters a bit in regards to the topic of this video, but I think the stars will still align. If you don't know who Sailorr is, she makes R&B music, she did the Hey Pookie song, and she's steadily making a name for herself. She recently dropped her album, and it's a pretty memorable album in my opinion. For a lot of people, especially on Twitter where yappers like to congregate, I too partake occasionally in the fuckery. Lots of people on Twitter doesn't like her because she's obviously not black. Her parents are from Vietnam, but Sailorr was born in the US. While scouring my timeline, I came across this post of someone reacting to a Sailorr interview where she was responding to claims of her being a culture vulture. And honestly, Sailorr's response was great. It was self-aware and coherent. So people picked apart her not speaking in AAVE, African American Vernacular English. This person reposted the clip saying, "That's crazy. She said this whole thing without a lick of AAVE. Now let's translate that into the music and I might believe it." Basically saying that the fact that she spoke, plain English, she needs to also do that in the music for her to take her seriously. Some of you might disagree with me. Like I said, this is where, things might get a little muddy, but I want to have this conversation and it's going to make sense. I think this person wants to be pandered to as they thought Sailorr needed to speak the way they prefer, or sang the way they prefer, for them to find her believable. Outside of her soulful voice and a vibe reminiscent of SZA and Summer Walker, Sailorr doesn't use a lot of AAVE, barely even. Yeah, she said Pookie and Down Bad in her music, and that's like 2 songs out of the handful of songs she has out at the moment. But I don't think it's enough for this type of call out. Additionally, now I did find another interview of Sailorr speaking, not singing, but speaking in AAVE in her Genius interview.
So I was like, damn, you got me down bad, I'm not gonna lie. If I knew my ex was gonna hear it, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna talk my shit.
She said she's gonna talk her shit, which is AAVE. So to the individuals who had issues with her singing in AAVE but not talking in AAVE, are you good now? Or maybe I just fell for the bait rage again, as this is really stupid. Nonetheless, it still comes off as people wanting Sailorr to pander to them, be the kind of artist they want so they don't even have to pay attention, because if she didn't look the way she does, no one would give a fuck. I get it, but it's also weird. I think they are upset because they like her music more than their fave and are kind of taken aback by it, because Tate is not that well known outside of YouTube and Twitter. But the more hate she gets, the more she'll be propelled. I think it's better when people like this go down the we need to gatekeep route instead of being this nitpicky, as it creates too many plot holes that I don't feel like getting into at the moment, as I'll probably get lost. Because if you think about it, Black American culture is the culture of the world, and that's a fact. So it would be better to make that argument that you don't want non-Black artists partaking in Black genres, which I don't agree with, a stance I've always had. I get the jadedness. I've, felt that way on many occasions, but at this point in time, I think that would be a net negative. Nonetheless, I still think the gatekeeper stance would have been a better argument. Or am I thirsty for panderism? At the root of persons wanting to be pandered to, specifically wanting it from musicians, I believe it's a way to bring the artist down and make them smaller or more tailored to them, which sounds comforting. We see this happening with Beyoncé's current Cowboy Carter era, getting scrutinized for being overtly political, pivoting to country music, although that's what Beyoncé wants to do, and gets accused of spreading American propaganda due to the Americana aesthetics of her tour and the Cowboy Carter album cover, where we see Beyoncé adorned in red, white, and blue attire, along with the inclusion of the American flag. Even though she is American and Black Americans displaying patriotism is nothing new. Beyoncé has received backlash for being political on many occasions. In 2013, when she pivoted into feminism during her self-titled album, her performing in Black Panther attire at the Super Bowl halftime show in 2016, and her endorsement of Kamala Harris. We also see a lot of people saying they don't like her music anymore, or that they miss the old Beyoncé that mainly focused on R&B back then. And the thing is, if Beyoncé didn't change musically and kept pandering to a mainly R&B audience, she would get washed along with other R&B acts who quote-unquote stayed true to R&B back in the day, but cannot be found today. Also, if I might add, Beyoncé is an R&B artist through and through and has never stopped releasing R&B music. So it's like she bends genres, allowing her to stay relevant and get more popular, and people are not okay with that. One of the main criticisms that Beyoncé's political leaning music has received is that she is compromised, because how can she sing about change or be against the, atrocities of the world when she herself is a part of the problem? She is rich and there is no ethical billionaire. And while that is true on many levels, the artist that does what Beyoncé is doing but in the quote-unquote right way gets no shine and isn't hyped up by these same critics begging Beyoncé to pander to them, to be more radical like Nina Simone. I recently watched this amazing video titled "Beyoncé is Everything" here on YouTube from creator FD Signifier, where he stated, "It'd be nice if Beyoncé was more like Nina Simone." In his video, he detailed how Nina risked her career for Black rights, partook in the civil rights movement, radical to the bone. Again, amazing video, I recommend you watch it. What I noticed in these discussions, and I might be trailing off a bit here, but I have a point. I notice a lot of people will want their commercially successful, marketable artists to go radical, or on some other occasions to almost reject their wealth and status. And I think a lot of us fail to realize that a lot of our faves who we try to sway in that direction for our desires did not sign up to play that game. A lot of people will not say this, but as revolutionary and world-renowned Nina is today, in her time, lots of people did not appreciate her as she was a Black woman, the most disrespected person in America, and honestly around the globe. Even with Bob Marley, the Jamaican reggae artist who sang about peace and unity, he is celebrated today. Everyone loves Bob. However, when he was alive, a lot of Jamaicans did not like him and did not appreciate his political, rebellious music or the unity he preached in his music. And this is what tend to happen with artists like Nina Simone. While everyone should care about her, that ends up happening when it's too late. And let's be real, if Nina Simone was alive today, she would be getting dragged up and down our timelines. Because while she, as I said, was revolutionary, she was also deeply troubled, misunderstood, and at times manic. FD did make it clear that while he does wish Beyoncé was more like Nina Simone, it's kind of impossible as they are different artists from different spaces and time. He said Nina had the civil rights movement, she was alive during, Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, while Beyoncé has TikTok, something to that effect. And I like that because it's true. In my opinion, Nina served her purpose and Beyoncé currently is serving hers. And maybe one day I'll make a video on Nina Simone and Bob Marley, as they are really fascinating human beings. if you ask me. In conclusion, I wish we would stop looking to artists or entertainers to save us, because it's not gonna happen. That's what the politicians are for, if you really want change. But in general, in society, we are losing the plot when we beg to be pandered to from these brands, politicians, and celebrities. We are losing focus as we try to live vicariously through others, which is a false sense of control in our own lives. We need to start believing these people when they show us who they truly are. What do you think? I really enjoyed making this video, and I hope you enjoyed as well. And I hope you see where I'm coming from. Let me know. And if you disagree, let me know as well. Let me know. Let me know. Oh, you love me, when you love me, when you love it. I'm Don, your pop culture boy, and I will see you in the next one.